all your stuff. What can figure it out? That's how it chooses you.
Hey, Teresa.
Hi, Claire. And hey, everybody. Welcome to It Chooses You Smidgen Edition.
Smidgen.
Thankfully, you guys get to hear Claire and I. Well, shit. I was going to say it's your episode, but it's not. But it is. It really is, though, because you're the one who has the theatrical background that it was able to identify one scene in the thing we're about to talk about that is just a beautiful example of a certain type of thing. And so even though we're both going to chat about it, it's definitely still yours. So what are we talking about this week?
We're doing a throwback today. We are talking about a specific episode in the brilliant show Parks and Recreation.
Yes.
It is the episode, I believe it's season 3, episode 13.
Ish.
It's called The Fight.
The Fight. Yes. It's so good.
I'm just going to give myself permission here. So if you guys don't like this sort of thing, maybe this isn't the episode for you, but obviously it's going to be, we're going to spoil the whole episode. We are going to just freak the fuck out about how brilliant this episode is. And we're going to freak the fuck out about how brilliant the writing is. So if you don't want to talk about writing, if you don't want to hear about crescendo and character,
enjoy a different episode. If you're going to say go fuck yourself.
I was trying to figure out what I was going to, no, I wasn't going to be aggressive, but
I just love that I fully projected my own response onto you. Because I would say go fuck yourself.
Well, I think my initial instinct was to be aggressive, and then I pulled back from that. But then I still wanted to make a joke out of it. Anyway, I'm already analyzing the writing. I'm just analyzing my own shitty writing.
Yeah, exactly. But how much more fun to analyze really, really good writing than to analyze our own really shitty writing? It's so much more fun.
That's right. It's such a pleasure. So just to give a general summary here, the episode we're talking about centers around a fight between Leslie Knope, played by Amy Poehler, and Anne Perkins, played by Rashida Jones.
Yeah.
I have to always give credit to the writers where it's due, and 100% the writing is brilliant in this episode. I will give credit to who is listed as the writer of the episode, Amy Poehler.
All right.
So, not surprising there.
Yeah, she's amazing. That show, if you haven't seen it, please, it's one of the best shows of the last 20 years of television, I would say. It's incredibly good. And has that Mike Schur workplace comedy thing that's just so great.
Hot tip. There's this great new show called Parks and Recreation. It's so hot, you've already missed it.
That's right. It ran for 7 years and it's over. That's how hot it is. I just want to say how much I love the fact that we do not follow any trends. Like, we never have any idea what's happening right now. I love that about us. Because I've been listening to, like, Instagrammer podcasts that talk about internet trends. And, like, sure, okay, but I really just don't care. And so I think, like, after a year of doing this, what I've realized is that this podcast is for people who don't give a shit about internet trends.
This podcast is eternal, Teresa.
That's what I meant.
I mean eternal in all of its positive and negative contexts.
Speaking of clawing itself out of a grave every morning.
I just wanted to mention here that the episode is so brilliant that it sets up this fight theme in the cold open. So if you'll recall, the cold open begins with Ron Swanson, Nick Offerman, asking who broke the coffee maker. And gradually you watch everyone turn on each other as Leslie Knope tries to take the blame for breaking it. He says, no, you didn't. And then at the end of that cold open, he says, basically, I broke it. It burned my hand, so I punched it. I predict that in a few minutes, they'll all be at each other's throats. Good. It was getting a little too chummy around here, basically, is what he says. And so I do feel like that's a little message from the writers, or from the writing staff, that, hey, we know we've been real happy clappy around here, so we're going to introduce a little tension and conflict just because that makes this world that much richer.
And it's so sweet, actually, because the fight is between Leslie Knope and Anne Perkins, as you said, who are the sweetest girlfriends you've ever seen. Leslie calls Anne, you sweet, beautiful starfish, and just the sunflower of my life, and just amazing. Of course, better writing than I'm doing right now. And so their relationship is so beautiful and true and loving. To watch them get in a fight was really satisfying.
I mean, as in any good television, the setup and the build and the crescendo is just lovely. They set it up from the very beginning in the first scene of Amy Poehler and Rashida Jones that Anne and Leslie have been having trouble connecting. It becomes very clear very quickly that Leslie doesn't know what's up with Anne's dating life. So there's a bit of, I'm so glad we finally get to catch up. And it starts as that friendly thing. But there's a conflict there, just that little ding at the beginning that clues you into what's going to be happening. And then at the end of that scene, so they finally have time to catch up. Ben runs by. He starts flirting with Leslie. And Leslie's flirtation literally carries her away from the physical space that Anne occupies. And so there's another little conflict on the other side, which is, we both aren't making time for each other.
She literally runs out of the frame. He suggests that they race to a meeting. And so she gets up and Anne is like, what the?
I should say Ben Wyatt, played by Adam Scott. They end up all having to go to the club to promote Tom Haverford's
new alcohol, snake juice.
And the club is called
the Snake Hole Lounge.
So this is where the fight takes place, right?
Tom Haverford is a mover and shaker, and his best friend is like Eurotrash, who's not actually European. John Ralphio is my favorite character. I love him so deeply.
And this is a brilliant John Ralphio episode.
It really is.
John Ralphio, of course, played brilliantly. I keep saying played brilliantly, but I don't know what else to say about these people. Played brilliantly by Ben Schwartz.
Yes. I could, again, Ben Schwartz is somebody I could watch do almost anything. John Ralphio is the only character from Parks and Rec, a show that I deeply love, that I've purchased merch with his face on it. I have a coffee mug called 3 Jean Moon, and it's that 3 Dog Moon t-shirt from the 70s with his face howling. It's amazing. Yeah, every time I drink out of it, I'm like, yes, that's right. But he arguably has the best line in the episode, and we'll talk about it when we get there.
John Ralphio shows up to help Tom, or at least watch it all unfold of Tom promoting his alcohol brand. And he's constantly rapping through the whole episode, but he doesn't end the rap on the rhyme. He always adds an extra syllable.
R to the O to the N, N, N. Yeah, Swanson's got swagger the size of Big Ben clock.
Right. Right. So he's there in full John Ralphio glory. So Leslie shows up. She wants Anne to go for this job. She expects Anne to supernaturally prepare as though she's had a year to prepare for this job interview. And of course, Anne's at the club hanging out with the douche from radio DJ duo Crazy Ira and the Douche.
The douche is Nick Kroll. Matt Besser plays Crazy Ira. And he and Amy Poehler and Matt Walsh were UCB together. Like, they were, I think, like the original crew UCB.
Did you know that Nick Kroll and Amy Poehler were engaged at one point?
I did. I'm also pretty sure that Amy Poehler and Matt Besser, who plays Crazy Ira, got it on in the day. Because there's all of this, like, they were together. And so basically, Crazy Ira and the Douche are her exes.
Well, that's every woman's fantasy, is to take your exes and
write them into your show. Yeah.
That's called controlling the narrative. Lots of great lines. You have the whole plot line with Andy and April. April, of course, played by Aubrey Plaza. Andy Dwyer, played by Chris Pratt. Role-playing these crazy characters, Burt Macklin from the FBI and Janet Snakehole.
I'm a rich widow with a terrible secret.
How would you classify that character? As like 1920s fast-talking?
Fast-talking, East Coast private girls' school accent heiress. Yeah, she's got a little fascinator. She has a little pillbox hat with a fascinator. She's dressed in all black. She has a cigarette holder.
So when Leslie sees Anne at the club, she confronts her. There's a lot of great third-party interference from the douche. There's a really great build into the fight, which almost crescendos in them sort of anger dancing next to each other on the dance floor. And as they're getting more and more emotional, they're drinking more and more. This results in a really great moment, again, with John Ralphio, where Amy Poehler just yells out randomly because she needs a dance partner, "John Ralphio!" And he just appears. "Yes, I'm here. Dance up on me." And so he does. Leslie and Anne end up finally in the bathroom getting to the meat of what this fight is. And I watched it with my cousin last night, and I looked over at her and I said, every single woman in the world has either been involved in a fight like this or overheard one in the bathroom of a club.
Yep. It's the bathroom club fight. That's just what that is.
It's a rite of passage.
Yeah. And they're so drunk they can barely speak. And like, no offense, but this. And no offense, but this. Oh, offense. That's rude.
So here we get to like me nerding out on writing. In my theater studies, my sort of nerdy physical theater studies, there are a lot of principles and rules and things like that. One of them is called CounterMask, which is the idea that we are complex beings, and for everything we are also its opposite. So a person who is incredibly timid and nervous also contains within them a measure of bravery and courage that, given the right stimulus and the right circumstances, that will emerge within that person.
Yeah, Terry Pratchett says sometimes the fuzzy animal backed into a corner by a cobra turns out to be a mongoose.
Mm-hmm. So the idea is that if you want to create any kind of arc or build for a character, you can provide them the right stimulus given their nature and see them change and become almost the opposite of what they are. This episode does that brilliantly, but very simply, with the stimulus being
snake juice.
The stimulus being snake juice and emotions. There's this brilliant series of what they normally call talking heads, though they don't all contain talking, in which each of the character exhibits their countermask because of alcohol and emotions. We like to see people change. We like to see people be different than they are. So it's just a quick succession of these. For example, Ron Swanson, the stoic, in control, manly, powerful person, dancing with that tiny little fascinator on his head to some music, crazily like he's a little girl. Or
the normally dry, quiet, slow, sarcastic April suddenly speaking incredibly animatedly in Spanish and gesturing wildly with her cigarette holder.
And then the intelligent, reserved Ben Wyatt drunkenly looking at the camera and saying, "Ba-ba booey," expressing the worst of masculinity. My favorites are still Leslie and Anne. Leslie just speaks inarticulately about the fight, and it all seems to blur together except you hear the words one thing and blah, 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 blah. And then Anne's culminates in her getting distracted and looking over to her right and going, "That bitch over there," talking about some random woman that has nothing to do with anything. This 30 seconds is the high point of the show.
It's so good.
The episode as a whole is, but this 30 seconds gets me every time. Mm-hmm. Really. Mm-hmm. Most of them pile into Donna's car. Donna's the one sober one. Donna, of course, played by the wonderful Retta.
Right, she's doing a cleanse. So she and Chris, played by Rob Lowe, have been talking about this juice cleanse they're on all night while everyone else is getting shit-faced. And they pile everyone into Donna's Mercedes and drive them home. Chris asks her, "Is everybody here?" And she's like, "Yeah, Tom's in the trunk and Jerry's strapped to the roof. Let's go." And they start to pull out, and you just hear John Ralphio say, "I'm so alone." It's the best line in the episode. It's so good. "I'm so alone."
And then, of course, we see the day after, the aftermath, right? Which I want to point out that there's a couple of things in that I noticed for the first time. One is, it's really fun to watch hungover people and not be hungover yourself.
Yeah, I remember from this episode, I was like, why are they at work? But that's exactly why those people they were in their CounterMask scene are there, because they are the kind of responsible people who, even though their bodies are on fire from the inside out, they are still at work the next morning.
And there was something beautiful in the camaraderie that they're in it together and they all show up. I really appreciated that. But I also thought, wow, it's really great to watch hungover people when I myself am not. Yeah. It's really satisfying.
I know what that feeling is, and I'm so glad I don't have it right now. Well, and then the extent to which this alcohol has messed them up is evident when Ben goes to see Anne to invite her to come for this interview that she's supposed to be coming for. And she opens the door and she's wearing snow pants. And he says, what are you wearing? She's like, "When I got home last night, I thought I might go sledding." And then it opens up to the outside and it's a beautiful summer day. "I thought I I go sledding.
And then, of course, Anne and Leslie make up and go off to throw up together. Anne gets the job on her terms. Everyone ends up happy. This episode is so dense. It's incredible what they've jam-packed in there and still made satisfying. But there's this mini arc at the end, which is, as everyone comes to work hungover, April has her little fascinator hat and tries to go into the voice and character to Jerry Gergich again. And he rolls his eyes and sort of sighs and walks off. And she has a moment of disappointment, like, oh, I guess the fun I had last night is now over. Couple of scenes later, she stops by the shoe shine station to see her boyfriend Andy. She tries again to play with him a little, and she says something to his character, Burt Macklin, like, you'll never catch me. And he says Burt Macklin died. And again, you see the disappointment on her face, like, oh, I guess we're not going to play this anymore. And then he realizes that he's disappointed her. So despite being deathly hungover, he takes a moment, he shifts, and he starts to play the game with her again, pretending to be one of his characters that's gonna go after her because that's what catch her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what she wants. And so he stands up to chase her and immediately vomits.
Yeah, it's like he had a head injury. As soon as he changed position, his body was like, no, rejection, all the way out. Yeah. Oh, God.
You get that really sweet small arc of seeing someone trying to make someone else that they love happy. But at the same time, you get a really good barf joke out of it. I mean, and that's the high and low that makes this show so great. We're not beyond a barf joke. You're going to have some feelings, but we're not beyond a vomit joke.
Oh, yeah. Done correctly. Anything is funny. Anything is funny. I'm so glad that we got a chance to talk about this episode. It is, like with you, one of my favorites of TV ever. So
Yay.
Yay.
Me too. So Parks and Rec, the episode called The Fight. Everybody, check out this hot new show.
Please download our episodes. We like that, and we like you. Have a great week.
Thank you all for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Testing? Great. Thank you for listening to It Chooses You. Your hosts are Teresa Sparks and Claire Patton. Our theme song is by Bobby Dart. If you'd like to get in touch with us, drop us an email at itchoosesyoupodcast@gmail.com.